Hey everybody, this is Lorelia, and I'm looking to discuss the topic that I put in the group today. And the question was, if you had $15,000, no, if you were in debt for $15,000 and the item was on your credit report. Hey, who is this? Oh, how you doing, Kwanzaa Greek Twin? Thanks for joining me. So, like I was saying, you had a debt on your credit report for $15,000, and it's the original creditor that is, and I know I didn't put all that in, the question. But let me just say this. The debt is for $15,000. And a debt settlement company, a debt collector, comes to you and say that they will settle the debt for $1,000. Will you pay it? Now, I believe I asked you, I gave a poll and I said, what would you do? Would you dispute the debt? Would you settle the debt? I can't think of the third one. Oh, or would you just pay it? And I think majority of the people put on the poll that they would dispute the debt. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It was a trick question. And the reason why it was a trick question is because the one thing that nobody asked me, because I asked a question, if you have any questions regarding what I just posted, please let me know and I will answer it. So the question that I posted was, the trick question is that no one asked me what was the nature of pay it but send a pay for delete letter. Well, actually, I'm going to answer that. That wouldn't be the right suggestion, and I'm going to explain to you why. Okay, Renee, if you can't hear me, it must be on your end, because I have other people on and they're hearing me fine. So check the sound to wherever you're looking at me on, your phone, tablet, computer. So going back to what I said, no one asked me the nature of the debt. Now, what do I mean by the nature of the debt? The debts are categorized in three categories: current debt, past due, charged off. Before you decide to pay any debt, whether you're doing a pay for delete letter, whether you're disputing the debt with the bureau, whether you're deciding to settle the debt, you need to know the nature of the debt. The reason why you need to know the nature of the debt, and this is what I'm explaining to you, it was a trick question because I didn't give you all the facts, but I thought somebody would ask me what the facts were. Some of the facts that I left out, that's why I had, paused a second ago. This debt is over 15 years old. You got that? 15 years old. Why would I send a letter to the debt collector for a pay for delete if a debt is 15 years old? This particular debt is a charged off debt. Now, before I proceed, I just want to put this disclaimer. I am not here to try to encourage you not to pay your debts. If you feel like in your heart of hearts you want to pay your debts, by all means, you go ahead and pay them. What I am sharing with you is that before you decide to pay any debt, you must know the nature of the debt you are paying. See, there is a statute of limitations on all debts, whether it's charged off, let me just say, whether it's a charged off debt, not a current debt or past due, but a charged off debt. Once that debt gets charged off, the statute of limitations begins to pick up. I just said that that debt was 15 years old. A debt can only be reported on your credit report for 7 years. Why would you do a pay for delete letter? All you would have to do is send it to the credit bureau and send them a letter stating that this debt is old, and it's past the statute of limitations, and that it should be removed off your credit report. See, this is the problem. See, many people will do what I believe Kwanzaa said do a pay for delete. But let me explain to you, ladies and gentlemen, there is a such thing of a debt being re-aged, and it's legal. It is legal at the point that you make some type of consideration to that debt collector saying that you are going to pay that debt. So if you did what Kwanzaa said do a pay for delete, and you and the debt collector agreed on what the matter would be, okay, in exchange for the $1,000, we will delete it off your credit report. The first thing that you have to think about is that it shouldn't have never even been reported. But we all know that debt collectors, they do break the law. So that is why the item was on the credit report. But at the point, going back to re-aging, at the point that you decide that you are going to pay that debt, that account is now re-aged. Now that debt collector can legally put that debt on your credit report. And why, I have to ask you, would you want a debt to be re-aged? So now you have taken a 15-year debt and you have now re-aged it because you thought doing a pay for delete would satisfy the matter, when all you had to do was send a letter to the credit bureau telling them to remove it. Now let's talk about the other side of it. Let's say you had a debt collector who is calling you about this debt. Now remind you, like I've said in other videos, debts are sold and resold. If a debt is 15 years old, it has went through numerous debt collectors. And the reason why I know this is that many of my videos are based on situations that people may have called me on or I'm currently dealing with clients. So I always, due to privacy, I'll change the names, I'll change the situation or what have you. In this situation, this happened from an individual who requested a consultation with me. What I discovered after talking to her is, like I said, the debt is 15 years old. 15 years old. So that's already, like I said, a matter in itself. That's an easy send a letter to the credit bureau, have it removed. But now the other side of it, which she was dealing with, is the harassment. See, that's the part no one's talking about. It's the harassment. She was getting harassed from the debt collector. See, all she would have did, and this is what I told her, and I'm actually looking for something. Now, many of you all may say, well, if it was a debt collector, then all she had to do was send a debt validation and validate the debt. No, sorry, Bob. You don't want to validate no debt that's over 15 years old. Why would you? Because remember, there's a time period of how long a debt can be on your credit report, 7 years. And then there's a time period for when a debt collector or any person who is collecting, there's a period of time in the state that you live in. Now, of course, I don't know the law in every state, but I know how to go to source to find other states. But here in New Jersey, there is a 6-year window of when debts can be collected. And so knowing that with a 15-year-old debt, there is no reason why any person should be getting harassed by a 15-year-old debt. And so I told her, now if you have a copy of my book, this is actually considered a zombie debt. And I talked about zombie debts right before Halloween. Now, what are zombie debts? Zombie debts are debts that are past the statute of limitation. How you doing, Danielle? They are considered time-barred debts. What that means is that the SOL has passed for the debt collector to collect on it, and now you are basically sending a letter letting them know, please leave me alone. Statute of limitations has passed. You no longer can collect on this debt. And so there you have it. And so I'm looking for the letter for a zombie debt. So that's why you want to be very cautious when you are doing a pay for delete. Because if you noticed, our viewer Kwanzaa said she would do a pay for delete. And you want to be very careful when you do that. If you go ahead and do a pay for delete, by all means, you have re-aged that debt. And why would you want to re-age a debt that is over 15 years old? So like I said, in my book, on page 58 and 59, it starts here. And then it ends on page 60. And it basically shows you a sample letter for a zombie debt. And if you basically the letter saying, I'm continually being called on the telephone by your firm over the alleged debt, you will fill that amount in. According to the information you've given me, the date of the last activity by the original creditor was on so and so date. Like I said, 15 years from the point that it got charged off. The statute of limitations on this alleged debt is X years in the state. Remind you, in New Jersey, it's 6 years. So basically, the letter is saying that the information cannot be collected. So there you have it, folks. That's why you need to know the nature of the debt. Because many people say, pay your debts off. And like I said, I totally get it. Some people feel like if they sign their John Hancocks on something, they want to pay it. But you need to know the nature of the debt. Because you paying a debt that's owed. Because the question may be asked, okay, Lorelia, well, say if I wanted to go ahead and pay the debt. I got $1,000. I want to just pay it off. You know, I don't want to take that strategy. Well, then basically all you didn't boost your credit score. Because now that 15-year-old debt, which shouldn't have been reported on your credit report anyway, now can be legally added onto your credit report, and it's going to say charged off. We all know charge-offs are negative. And not only is it going to say charge off, but then it's also going to say paid. What good is that? What good is that? Having the whole trade line removed will boost your credit, will boost your credit score up. Yes, I do, Danielle. And what I will do after this live, I will reach out to you, and then we can talk more about it. So there you have it. So yes, thank you. So there you have it in terms of, hey, I just want to pay it. See, a lot of people don't talk about that. A lot of people don't talk about the nature of the debts. And the reason why you need to know the nature of the reason why you want to know the nature of the debt is because when you hear a person say, and like I said, most people just give you very surface talk, you know, in terms of, I was $30,000 in debt and I paid it off. But what they never tell you is what was the nature of that debt. Because if that debt was a current debt or past due, then of course the way you would pay that off is a whole different strategy than how you would pay off a charged off debt. So when you hear someone talking about, oh, I had $30,000 in debt, I was $30,000 in that debt and I paid it off, you need to know the nature of the debt. Because paying off a whole bunch of charged off debt is not going to help your score. Now, if you just want to pay off debt just for the heck of it, by all means, like I said, I put the disclaimer already in the beginning of the video, by all means, you go ahead and do it. But if you want to increase your credit score, oh, if you can't load it, you may have to come in Facebook Live and then come back in. Because I think somebody else said they had a problem hearing me. So going back to what I said, you have to know the nature of the debt. All debts are not treated equal. And many people would want to tell you that. That's surface talk. That's surface talk to tell people, get rid of debt, clear up your debt. Not too many people are talking about the nature of the debt. See, some people want to say, oh, screw talking about the nature of the debt and just stick with paying off your debt. Well, I'll tell you one thing. If you pay a 15-year-old debt, it's because you really didn't know better and you was advised wrong. Because I don't want no 15-year-old debt that the statute of limitations has passed on it and now it has gotten re-aged. Because many people will say, well, how does that work in terms of original creditor? Most original creditors are not holding on to 15-year-old debt that's not being paid. This particular debt had got to a point where the person was unable to pay and the creditor sold off that debt. And knowing the history of this particular company, the company is no longer in business. And so I know that it had got sold to one company, and then from that company, a merger happened, and that company folded, and then a new company bought it. And that's why I said you have to know the business of debt. See, many people don't even understand the business of credit, the business of debt. So what happened is when the new company bought the assets of the old company, anything that's not being performed on, meaning a debt that the person's not paying on, that's all old stuff. So all that old debt, all that non-performing asset stuff that now became a liability got sold off by the new, by the person who originally had the debt. Now I know that may be very technical for some, but you need to understand that. And the reason why you need to understand that is how I know, because you're wondering, well, how is it that a 15-year-old debt would still be collected on? It's because debts get recycled. They go from one debt collector to another debt collector to another debt collector. And each time, the price of that debt gets lower and lower and lower. And that's why you will see a very astronomical settlement. And that's why she had reached out to me, is because the settlement was outrageous. And I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's the end of the year. Companies are in the fourth quarter. They are looking at their balance sheets. So any debts that are past due, that are now in the charged off status, I'm not going to say past due, but in charged off status, those you're going to see a lot of offers come in the mail, and they're going to look very good. Lot of offers. So if you haven't started seeing them, pay attention to your mailbox between now and January. The offers are going to come in. They're going to say, hey, you owe $8,000. Let's settle for whatever, $1,500. They're going to be rock bottom settlement offers. And like I said, I'm not here to tell you not to pay your debts. You believe in your heart of hearts you want to pay them, by all means, you go ahead and pay them. But you must know the nature of the debt. You must know the statute of limitations of the debt. And the way you find that is by looking at your credit report. That is the way that you will find out when you had the original debt, because 9 times out of 10 is on there. especially if you haven't been looking at your credit report. And then you will also see the item from the debt collector. And usually that is on there. And that will give you an idea of the statute of limitations. So I was just waiting to see if I had any more questions. So that was the answer to the poll that I put in the Facebook group. Because like I said, it was a trick question. And I thought some people would ask me about it and ask for a little bit of more information.
You're done?
Once the debt is removed. I'm confused. If it's removed, why would they be putting it back on? If they do. Okay, so my understanding is this, not clear on the question. If the item got removed, the period of time, it really matters. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's okay, if the debt is removed, it's not supposed to be added onto the credit report back on. If it's removed, it shouldn't be added on. But if it is, because it happens, that's a violation of the CRA. And so if a credit bureau does not give you 5 days letting you know that there was an error or whatever they came up to justify, like, oh, we removed this, but we made a mistake, or whatever they state, is 5 days. If they don't give you 5 days notice, then that's a violation of the FCRA, and that is when you need to send another dispute, letting them know that they did do a violation of the FCRA. So I think that's my understanding, of the question, because I get that a lot. People always say, well, what about if the item gets removed? Can it be added on? No, it should not. Do it get added on? Sure. Because like I told people, the credit bureaus are not here to help you. See, okay, I'm glad I answered it. They're not here to help you. See, many of these individuals who are giving advice to creditors, they are about credit. They're being sponsored by the bureaus. So with that being said, they're going to water down their message very, very fluffy. They're not going to give you the real stuff. And that's why, and what I mean by real stuff, they're not going to tell you that credit bureaus make a lot of money with you being in debt. They're not, because they know that a person who is in debt, have low credit scores, have no type of economic leverage or power. So that is why you have to work very hard to rebuild your credit. Many people think the credit bureaus are governmental agencies. They're not governmental agencies. So you cannot just assume that everything that they put on there is right. See, I'm not looking to be sponsored by a credit bureau. So that's why I'm talking about a lot of stuff that's not surface talk. And that is a big violation. And if they're doing it, you have to call them on it, because you can't assume that everything they're doing is right. I've said before, financial ignorance is a $1 billion industry. It's not to call nobody ignorant, but it is what it is. It's big business. It's big business. I can go right now, as a business owner, go right to Experian and ask them, give me the names and addresses of people who live in this city and this county with credit scores from this range and that range. They will give me all the information. Experian is a marketing company, and that is how you get all those offers in the mail. They're selling information. That's how you get credit card offers. That's why you get local car dealership offers. It's not because you got good credit. It's because you have bad credit and people are looking to make money off individuals with bad credit. Because you have no economic power, you have no economic leverage. That's real talk. Most people are not having that conversation. That's why I said I'm not giving surface information. That's why I say when you talk about debts, let's really talk about debts. Let's talk about the nature of the debt. Nobody's talking about that. Everybody is talking the same rah rah rah. Let's get debt free and let's get rid of debt. It's much deeper than that. It's much deeper than that. You go ahead paying debt just because you want to be in the club of paying debts off. You're gonna get yourself caught up in a bind. And that's why I said that 15-year bind. A debt that, like I said, this was a real call from a real person who called me for a consultation, and that is what she was dealing with. 15-year-old debt with a great settlement offer, and she was wondering should she pay it. And like I told her, like I'm saying here, this is what's going to happen if you pay it. So thanks for that question, Renee. And Renee, was I clear on in regards to the goodwill letter? Let's just want to talk about that real quick. Regarding late pays. Late pays, you always want to dispute with the original creditor. And the goodwill letter is basically letting them know that, oops, I made a mistake. Can you give me, can you, reverse that late payment? And I promise I won't never do it again. See what they say. And if they agree to whatever you want, then once you get that letter in writing that says, well, the thing is that the thing is, I was reading a question, and once paid, well, that's the whole point. You don't want it to leave the old debt. Okay, so if it's an old debt, does Capital One still have it? Because I thought it was a current debt. Because if it's an old debt, what's the status of the debt? Goes back to the nature. I talk about the nature of the debts in my book. What's the nature of the debt? If it's past due, is it a current debt? I talk about it on page 27. Current debts, past due, and defaulted charged off debts. You must know the nature of the debt. Once you know the nature of the debt, then you could proceed what's the next thing. Because if it's an old debt, why would you be disputing a late pay on an old debt? That's the point that I'm not quite getting. So that's why I thought it was a new debt. Because I hope you're not trying to get a late pay off of a charged off Capital One account. That wouldn't make sense. So you just want to be clear. The strategy that I told you in terms of the goodwill letter is for debts that are current debts that you kind of gotten behind on.